You know, some winters feel long, but the winter of 1816 never really ended. They called it the year without a summer. A year when the sun forgot how to shine and the air carried a cold that didn't belong. It started quietly. The snow melted, the rivers swelled, the earth began to breathe again. And then the warmth just didn't come back. People waited and waited. They said maybe the season was just confused, but days turned into weeks, and the air still bit like January. No one knew that half a world away, a volcano named Tambora had torn itself open, spitting ash so high it reached the edges of space. The sky dimmed. The wind carried the dust across oceans, and soon the whole earth felt like it had been put inside a shadow. In New England, mornings looked like dusk. The sun rose pale and shy, and even at noon, light felt secondhand. Farmers stood in their fields and didn't speak. They just looked up, squinting, wondering what had gone wrong between heaven and the soil. By June, it snowed. Not flurries, not frost. Real snow, heavy enough to bend the crops that had dared to sprout. Children ran outside laughing because snow in June sounded like a miracle. But when it didn't melt, their laughter turned into questions no parent could answer. The nights came early and left late. Candlelight became the new sun. People burned what they could. Furniture, books, broken fences, just to keep one room warm enough to dream. A woman in Vermont wrote in her journal, "The air smells like ash and rain. My hands are cracked from cold, though it is July." Imagine that. July, when life should bloom. And instead, the world went gray. Animals grew thin. Rivers froze at their edges. There were no songs from the birds, no frogs calling to the night. Just the sound of the wind and the way wood sighed when it burned. Still, people tried, because that's what people do. They built stoves from scrap iron, sewed coats from curtains, shared bread that was more kindness than flour. And when one neighbor ran out of wood, another shared a wall's worth. In that endless winter, they learned something about warmth, that it wasn't fire, it was each other. But the fear was real too. Some said it was punishment, others whispered of the end of days. Priests filled churches, and children asked if the sun had died. Parents didn't know what to say. In Massachusetts, a young girl named Clara wrote, "Mother says this is the year the sky forgot us. I think it's just sleeping." She was 12. She drew little suns in her notebook, yellow circles surrounded by gray pencil smudges, like she was trying to remind the sky of its job. On the other side of the ocean, a young woman named Mary Shelley sat by a cold lake in Switzerland. She couldn't sleep, so she wrote about a scientist who tried to build life from death. A story born from the year the world lost its light. Even darkness can create something. As months passed, the hunger came. Crops died before they ripened. Grain spoiled in the damp. Families boiled weeds into soup, and the sound of stomachs growling became part of the wind. In Maine, fishermen said even the ocean had forgotten how to be generous. The water was too cold. The fish stayed deep, hiding from a world gone wrong. But somehow, people survived. They always do. They lit candles and prayed to a sky that didn't answer, and yet the prayers kept coming. A pastor wrote, "When the light is gone, faith has to learn how to see in the dark." And that's what they did. They learned to see differently. The stars, when they appeared, looked brighter than they ever had. Every flicker of flame felt like proof that something still cared. Then, slowly, almost shyly, the world began to thaw. It started with the smallest things. A patch of green on a south-facing hill, the return of a bird too stubborn to quit, the sound of ice turning to water again. People stepped outside just to feel it, to make sure they weren't imagining. The first real sunrise in months made grown men cry. Crops came back, though thin and weak. But people had changed. They no longer waited for the world to warm them. They made warmth themselves. They shared more, spoke softer, built stoves big enough for 2 families instead of 1. Eli Thompson, a farmer in Vermont, carved a message into his barn door before that spring, "Come summer, we begin again." The words stayed there for years, long after the paint had peeled away, like the world's quiet promise to itself. And when that summer finally did return, it wasn't bright or loud. It was gentle, the kind of summer that doesn't need to prove anything. Children ran through wet grass barefoot, and their parents stood at the door, hands on their hearts, grateful for the sound of laughter. Clara, now 13, wrote one last note in her diary. The sun came back today. It didn't apologize. It just stayed. And that's the story I think about. When nights feel too long, when things feel colder than they should, 'cause maybe we all have our own year without a summer. Times when the light hides and the world feels too quiet. But if you listen closely, you can still hear the sound of warmth moving slowly through the dark like footsteps you can't see but trust anyway. So tonight, let yourself rest. You don't have to chase the sun. It knows the way back. Close your eyes. Breathe like the world is gentle. Let the dark be soft around you. Let the quiet hold you the way summer will when it finally comes again. Good night. Sleep well, and remember, even the coldest year found its light again.